Chapter 919, The Battle Has Started. Chapter 919. The battle has started. Silence descended in the drill ground. Everyone waited with bated breath for the reveal of Jian Wushuang's 3 wedding gifts. Jian Wushuang didn't disappoint. He flipped his palm and showed a nearly clear jade bottle. There was a light purple elixir in it. Unlike general elixirs, this elixir wasn't fragrant and had an odorous scent. The experts frowned when they saw the elixir. This elixir is called crepe myrtle elixir. Jian Wushuang looked up at Emperor Lung. His voice rang out across the whole drill ground. Crepe myrtle elixir? Many people were confused as they had never heard about it or were aware of its function. However, Emperor Lung seemed shocked. Lung Rushuang, who was sitting beside Emperor Lung, appeared stunned as well. She looked at Wushuang. Jian Wushuang continued, "More than 200 years ago, I was a 3-clawed blood eagle guard in the Royal Guard. I went through a Hell level assignment with the other 3-clawed blood eagle guards." Hell level? Everyone was taken aback. The Blood Eagle Guard was well known in the Kingdom Tang of the Eastern Land. They had heard of some of their assignments too. Hell level assignment. Hell level assignments were fraught with danger. There had been few such assignments in the history of the Kingdom Tang of the Eastern Land. The reason for that Hell level assignment was because the princess had been badly poisoned. To control the poison, a natural treasure called Yin Yang Dragon Phoenix fruit was needed to refine the crepe myrtle elixir. I went to an impasse in the Eternal World with other 3-clawed blood eagle guards. After surmounting numerous obstacles, I was the only one who survived and retrieved the Yin Yang Dragon Phoenix fruit. Now, I present the crepe myrtle elixir, refined by that Yin Yang Dragon Phoenix fruit, as my first wedding gift. Jian Wushuang's voice was as loud as thunder, and it rang out across the drill ground. Of course, he had mentioned the impasse without talking about the Stellar Fog Sea. The Stellar Fog Sea had been a mystery for a long time. If it were public knowledge that he had emerged from it alive, it would inevitably cause some trouble. Understanding dawned on the spectators. The crepe myrtle elixir might not be very valuable, but it had been retrieved at great cost. The sincerity of the gift was incomparable. As for the function of the crepe myrtle elixir, seated at the throne in the middle of the stand, Emperor Lung raised his eyebrows. Looking at Jian Wushuang, he thought to himself, he really came out of the Stellar Fog Sea and got the Yin Yang Dragon Phoenix fruit. How did he manage to do it? Lung Rushuang was trembling slightly. He went to the Stellar Fog Sea for me? Her emotions were in turmoil. More than 200 years ago, Emperor Lung had sent some experts to the Stellar Fog Sea to get the Yin Yang Dragon Phoenix fruit for her. However, she hadn't known that Jian Wushuang had been one of them. The Stellar Fog Sea. It was the impasse from which no one came out alive. Jian Wushuang, Emperor Lung finally said, "Your first gift is indeed quite useful for Shuang'er." Everyone was amazed with Emperor Lung's acknowledgement. For a fleeting moment, Xia Meng looked upset. It's just opportunistic. Even if his crepe myrtle elixir is more useful than my youth-retaining elixir, it's just the first gift. Everyone stared at Jian Wushuang as he smiled and took out his second gift. The second gift was also an elixir in a jade bottle. However, there were 5. Distinguished Emperor Lung elders. You are all very knowledgeable. I believe you can recognize these 5 elixirs without my introduction. Jian Wushuang took one out and placed it on his palm. The experts on the stand stared at the light yellow elixir. Is it the Bodhi Dan? Yes, it's Bodhi Dan. I've seen it before. It has the same color and same fragrance. I am sure. The legendary Bodhi Dan. Experts on the stand were agitated. Some of them even stood up. Bodhi Dan, the elixir that could allow an Eternal Realm expert to easily become a Dao Master. It was a legendary elixir in the Eternal World. It was almost extinct. One Bodhi Dan had a 90% chance of turning an Eternal Realm expert into a Dao Master. 5 Bodhi Dan meant 5 Dao Masters. These were human Dao Masters, unlike Xia Meng's Blood Emperor puppets. Human experts were obviously more valuable than puppet fighters. Jian Wushuang's first gift, the crepe myrtle elixir, might have been only slightly better than the youth-retaining elixir. The 5 Bodhi fruits were undoubtedly far better than the 2 Blood Emperor puppets. I am very grateful to predecessor Alchemy Master for the Bodhi Dawn. Jian Wushuang looked up at Alchemy Master. He had 5 Bodhi fruits, with which it was already difficult to refine 4 Bodhi Dawn. As the number 1 alchemist, Alchemy Master had refined 5. The success rate was 100%. Seeing the 5 Bodhi Dawn, Xia Yu from the Xia clan became upset. How is it possible? How did he get the Bodhi Dan? And he even brought 5? Xiao Meng looked terrible but calmed down soon. Though your second gift is more precious than my Blood Emperor puppets, don't forget my third gift. The third gift from our Xia clan is an enormous treasure house. It's invincible. Xiao Meng was absolutely confident with their third gift. So what if the crepe myrtle elixir had a better function than his youth-retaining elixir? So what if 5 Bodhi fruits were more precious than his 2 Blood Emperor puppets? The most important and valuable gift they had prepared was the third one. It had outshone all the gifts from the others combined. What did someone from an ordinary sect of the realm have that could compete with that? Jian Wushuang didn't mind Xiao Meng at all. He looked at the experts and took a deep breath. He took out the third gift that had been prepared by his master, which had totally shocked Gu King and himself. Chapter 920 The Splendid Magic Weapon Pavilion. Chapter 920 The Splendid Magic Weapon Pavilion. The expectant crowd watched on as Jian Wushuang delivered the third wedding gift. There was an abrupt buzzing sound as a splendid palace materialized out of thin air in the void of the drill ground. Mighty and majestic aura emanated from the palace, drawing everyone's attention to it. Jian Wushuang declared, "This is the third wedding gift, the Magic Weapon Pavilion." Jian Wushuang's voice reverberated in all directions as everyone present looked at the pavilion with some skepticism. Magic Weapon Pavilion? What's the use of such a pavilion? Did anyone notice that the pavilion was taken out from his interspatial ring? Noise from the chatter echoed through the drill ground. Most of the comments reflected the doubts and suspicion of the crowd. In the upper stand, the top experts furrowed their brows as they glanced at the pavilion. This pavilion was taken out from his interspatial ring. So it's a treasure that he can carry with him at all times. It's rare, but it can't be regarded as extremely precious. An expert blurted. The third wedding gift from Jian Wushuang is a portable pavilion. This pavilion can barely compare with a peak-level emperor weapon. It may be more valuable, but as the third wedding gift, it's not enough. Haha, I thought he would produce a more valuable wedding gift, but this is mediocre. Xia Yu mocked. Xia Yu had initially been surprised at the appearance of the magic weapon pavilion in the drill ground. He laughed out loud. Jian Wushuang, this is your third wedding gift? A pavilion? Haha, this pavilion is less valuable than Bodhi Dan. Are you making fun of Emperor Lung by presenting it as your last wedding gift? Despite Xiao Meng's sarcastic words, Jian Wushuang maintained his composure, and he continued to smile. This is the wedding gift my master had carefully prepared for me. Today let me open your eyes. Jian Wushuang's eyes were lit up with energy. In the upper stand, Jian Wushuang's senior brother Shuelingtian's gaze intensified. It begins. With a serious expression on his face, Jian Wushuang stared at the huge pavilion in front of him and focused his thoughts on it. Open. The pavilion opened wide in response to Jian Wushuang's command. The interior of the pavilion was revealed. Xiao Meng, who had been ridiculing Jian Wushuang a minute ago, froze. In the upper stand, Xia Yu was also taken aback. The spectators in the drill ground were stunned at the scene inside the magic weapon pavilion. Within the magic weapon pavilion, there were dense and innumerable exhibition shelves, each piled with countless magic weapons in a neat and orderly fashion. There were various kinds of magic weapons. It held all treasures one could imagine, like swords, broadswords, axes, spears, magic weapons, and so on. Most importantly, these magic weapons possessed extremely tough and strong auras. The auras had different characters, ranging from hostile and brutal, dark and cold, and sacred. All of these weapons had reached Emperor weapon level. The magic weapon pavilion turned out to be a huge treasure vault filled with numerous Emperor weapons. It was composed entirely of countless Emperor weapons. Everyone was shocked. Jian Wushuang, who had remained standing in front of Magic Weapon Pavilion, took a deep breath and opened his mouth slowly. His voice was cold, but every word resounded like the beat of a drum. Magic Weapon Pavilion contains innumerable Emperor weapons. This includes 2,631 Sword Emperor weapons, 1,594 Broadsword Emperor weapons, 1,423 Spear Emperor weapons, 1,080 Axe Emperor weapons, Stick Emperor weapons. In total, there are 13,799 Emperor weapons. Counting the Magic Weapon Pavilion, which is comparable to a peak Emperor weapon, there are exactly 13,800 Emperor weapons. This is the third wedding gift that I have specially prepared to marry Her Royal Highness. At the end of his declaration, Jian Wushuang's voice was close to a roar. His hands were also tightly clenched, and his eyes were filled with unprecedented energy and light. A total of 13,800 magic weapons, and all were Emperor weapons. He believed that his incredible wedding gift would override all others in the selection ceremony. Xia Clan. Magic Cloud Valley. I will see if the so-called Magic Cloud Valley relics are superior to my 13,800 Emperor weapons. Jian Wushuang's heart was howling. There was dead silence. An eerie silence had descended in the drill ground. The only sound that could be heard was that of the accelerated pulses of the experts present. The experts present stared at the massive magic weapons in the Magic Weapon Pavilion. Shock turned to panic, and then to fury and madness. More than half of the top experts in the stand couldn't help standing up. Even Xia Yu from Xia Clan stood up. Jian Wushuang's words continued to echo in their heads. 13,800. They were not merely 8,000 divine weapons or eternal weapons, but 13,800 Emperor weapons. Those were precious Emperor weapons, which would be highly valued even by Dao masters. They had also realized that many of the Emperor weapons had reached advanced level or even peak level. 13,800. It was the sheer number of weapons that made all present tremble in shock and disbelief. This was an unprecedented and unbelievable wedding gift. Everyone was stunned by the number of Emperor weapons in the Magic Weapon Pavilion. All were stupefied. But this was normal. After all, when Xue Lingtian received this wedding gift, even the experienced Bone King who had wandered around with 8-star Imperial God was freaking out. All of you are surprised. Which King gloated and hummed in the body of Jian Wushuang. He was pleased at the reaction of the crowd. He was certain that Jian Wushuang's wedding gift was unparalleled enough to shock the whole world. Chapter 921 Crush at Wedding Gifts. Chapter 921 Crush at Wedding Gifts. It was silent in the drill ground. The huge sacred magic weapon pavilion was quietly suspended in the void. Aura from the magic weapons within emanated from it. The horrible number 138,000 echoed in everyone's mind. The experts in the stand had a wealth of experience and soon recovered from their shock. After coming back to themselves, those in the stand were in a frenzy. How is it even possible? Oh God! 138,000 magic weapons? If I didn't see it with my own eyes, I would never believe it. It's incredible that someone can collect such a vast number of magic weapons for a wedding gift. 138,000 Emperor weapons. I really doubt that he brought all the Emperor weapons in the eternal world here. It's too incredible. There were gasps of horror. As experienced as the experts were, they had never witnessed such a shocking scene. Even Emperor Lung found it hard to restrain his shock. How is it possible? So many Emperor weapons. If Tang of the East spared no effort, we probably won't be able to obtain 1 or 2/10 of these weapons. How did he achieve this? Emperor Lung muttered as he speculated on a possible reason. Is it from Stellar Fog Sea? The Stellar Fog Sea is so mysterious that no one has emerged from it alive for a long time. No one knows what is inside. Jian Wushuang managed to survive the Stellar Fog Sea. It is probable that he gained a great opportunity there, and obtained an incredible number of Emperor weapons. As for that Bodhi Dan, it is probably from the Stellar Fog Sea too. Yes, definitely from Stellar Fog Sea. Emperor Lung confirmed his guess inwardly. Jian Wushuang had indeed gained a great opportunity in the Stellar Fog Sea. The Bodhi fruit to refine the Bodhi Dan was from Stellar Fog Sea. But the magic weapon pavilion had nothing to do with Stellar Fog Sea. This magic weapon pavilion had been given by his mysterious master Xian Yi. And the 138,000 emperor weapons were also from Xian Yi. This was a big gift from his master. Oh. Seated at the long table, Shui Lingtian smiled slightly and looked around. You guys, what do you think of the third wedding gift prepared by my junior brother? Incredible. The master from Dongyan clan said. 138,000 emperor weapons. Even if Dongyan clan sells all it owns, it cannot compare to 1% of this magic weapon pavilion. Master Bloodsaber, how did your junior brother get all these emperor weapons? All eyes turned to Shui Lingtian. They were curious about how Jian Wushuang had managed to obtain such a huge number of emperor weapons. Was this opportunity in defiance of the natural order? Don't bother with how my junior brother got these emperor weapons. I just want to know how this gift compares with that offered by Xia Meng from Xia clan? Shui Lingtian asked with a slight smile on his face. The experts in the stand were in a daze for a second and exchanged glances. They were too embarrassed to respond in Xia Yu's presence, but the answer was obvious. Jian Wushuang and Xia Meng had each prepared 3 wedding gifts. Xia Meng's gifts were indeed extremely precious, especially the third Magic Cloud Valley relic, which had surpassed all others in the convention. However, compared to Jian Wushuang's gifts, Xia Meng's gifts were inferior. The disparity was immense. For the first wedding gift, Xia Meng had offered youth-retaining elixir. Jian Wushuang had provided crepe myrtle elixir. Youth-retaining elixir and crepe myrtle elixir were of equal rarity and value. Youth-retaining elixir stopped aging for female cultivators. This was an attractive feature, but it had no truly useful functions. On the other hand, crepe myrtle elixir could inhibit the toxin in Lung Wushuang's body. Besides, Jian Wushuang had overcome great obstacles and retrieved it at great risk to himself. This love alone was something that Xia Meng could not compare with. The disparity between the second wedding gifts was more obvious. The 2 Blood Emperor puppets given by Xia Meng owned Dao Master level strength, but they were merely puppet fighters. Bodhi Dan offered by Jian Wushuang could produce human Dao Master experts. There were also 5 Bodhi Dan, and therefore potentially 5 human Dao Masters. And as for the third wedding gift, Xia Meng had provided 4 tokens that granted access to the Magic Cloud Valley relics. To obtain the treasures from Magic Cloud Valley, effort, cost and time would need to be spent by the bearer of the tokens. Furthermore, only 50 or 60% of treasures may be retrieved. The magic weapon pavilion offered by Jian Wushuang required no further cost or effort by the recipient of the gift. Most importantly, while the Magic Cloud Valley relics held a large number of treasure opportunities, their combined value did not even come close to the value of the magic weapon pavilion. A total of 138,000 emperor weapons. This number was really incredible. It was estimated that there was nothing in the entire eternal world which could match the value of these magic weapons. Naturally, the Magic Cloud Valley relics paled in comparison to them. So the 3 wedding gifts from Jian Wushuang and Xia Meng were compared. None of the wedding gifts from Xia Meng were comparable to those presented by Jian Wushuang. In the stand, Xia Yu's face flushed. He Xia clan had spent millions of years searching for the Magic Cloud Valley relics. He had intended for the gift to shock the selection ceremony. He had not expected that Jian Wushuang's wedding gifts that would be much more precious than the Magic Cloud Valley relics. This was completely beyond his and everyone's expectations. A small boy from a remote domain and an ordinary sect had presented wedding gifts that far surpassed their Xia's. If news of this spread, their first overlord clan, Xia clan in the Tang of the East, would inevitably become a laughingstock. So what if he has better wedding gifts than Xia clan? The selection ceremony doesn't just look at wedding gifts. It considers talents and strengths too. We'll see who has the last laugh. Xia Yu snorted coldly. Chapter 922 A Competition of Strength. Chapter 922. A Competition of Strength. The experts in the stand nodded at Xia Yu's words. Indeed, wedding gifts was only one aspect of the selection ceremony. Strength mattered too. Moreover, the wedding gifts was only an external factor, and did not speak for the ability of a person. Someone who was lucky and had no abilities could still obtain treasures that others couldn't reach. Many people felt that Jian Wushuang had probably lucky to get Bodhi Dan and Magic Weapon Pavilion. In the drill ground, Xia Meng had recovered from his shock. A grimace remained on his face. As he glanced at Jian Wushuang, coldness emerged in his eyes. Jian Wushuang, I have no idea how you got the Magic Weapon Pavilion. The strength and talent competition is next. This totally depends on personal strength. I shall see how you can compete with me. Xia Meng had utmost confidence in his strength. He was recognized as the first genius in the Eternal World. He was fully deserving of the title of First Eternal Realm Expert in the Eternal World. Over the years, many strong Eternal Realm experts had challenged him but lost. Without a doubt, the strength competition was totally different from the wedding gifts competition. From his seat in the middle of the stand, Emperor Lung looked down. The strength and talent competition is next. As for the competition rules, before Emperor Lung had finished his sentence, Dongyan Chong from Dongyan clan in the drill ground took the lead. He stood outside and said respectfully, Emperor Lung, the strength competition need not be so troublesome. Oh! Emperor Lung glanced at Dongyan Chong. Dongyan Chong continued gravely, as we all know, Xia Meng is well known as the first Eternal Realm expert in the Eternal World, and also the first genius. In terms of strength, he should be the strongest. Since this selection ceremony aims to select the strongest person, there is no need to waste time. If any one of us has doubts about Xia Meng's strength, just challenge him. Anyone who defeats him wins the competition. I know very well that I can't beat Xia Meng, so for this round of competition, I will just give up. Many people around Dongyan Chong shared his sentiments. Unlike the first round competition on wedding gifts, no suspense existed for the second round competition on strength. It was widely recognized that Xia Meng was the first Eternal Realm expert in the Eternal World. Even other geniuses with extraordinary strength not on the same level as him. What do you think, Xia Meng? Emperor Lung said as he looked down. I don't mind. Xia Meng laughed. How about you? Emperor Lung looked at Jian Wushuang, Kui and others. They nodded their assent. So that's it. If any one of you has any doubts about Xia Meng's strength, just challenge him. If not, we'll take it that you have given up. Emperor Lung said. As Emperor Lung finished his words, all the geniuses, apart from Jian Wushuang, looked in Xia Meng's direction. Like Dongyan Chong, more than half of them had no intention of challenging Xia Meng. The rest of them were hesitant. Finally, a long-haired man with a saber stepped out. This long-haired man was the personal disciple of Deep Sea Palace Master, Li Tianqiu. Li Tianqiu appeared in front of Xia Meng with a cold and indifferent face and shocking killing intent. I have long heard that Master Mubai of Xia Clan is the first Eternal Realm in the Eternal World. It is a pity that we had no chance to meet previously. Since we have that opportunity today, we should have a good fight. Besides, since I set foot on the 6 steps of Eternal Realm thousands of years ago, I have encountered many Eternal Realm top experts but never lost a fight. Let's see if I'm defeated today. Li Tianqiu said coldly. As you wish, Xia Meng said with a slight smile. There was absolute confidence in his words and behavior. Just go ahead. Humph. Li Tianqiu was very decisive. With a cold snort, he started to attack. With a rapid wraith-like move, he leapt forward. The void before Xia Meng was suddenly broken and a strong wind swept over. When Li Tianqiu's body appeared, the saber he had carried behind him appeared in his hand. Aggression emanated from him. Swish! A black saber shadow pierced forward. Xia Meng had been standing quietly looking at Li Tianqiu's slash. When the ghost-like saber shadow approached him, a faint smile showed on his lips. He slapped his hand in front of him. This slap was as light as cloud and wind. However, its impact had a horrible, earth-crushing power which forced Li Tianqiu to retreat. What? Li Tianqiu was shocked. He had not expected his slash to be so easily blocked by Xia Meng. He stepped back, trembling. No wonder he is the first eternal realm in the eternal world. He is truly strong. In that case, Li Tianqiu unleashed his full strength. A vast black fog surged violently upwards from his body and expanded to the surroundings. In a very short time, it had developed into a huge black ocean. It covered most of drill ground and obscured Li Tianqiu's figure. At the sight of this scene, the experts on the stand sighed. They turned and looked at a black-robed bearded old man who wore a cold expression on his face. This was Li Tianqiu's master, the Deep Sea Palace Master. Deep Sea Palace Master, this disciple of yours is quite good. At such a young age, he has cultivated your unique secret skill to such a high level. It seems that he has fully mastered Chapter 1 of Spiritual Sea Realm and carved out his own Tao. He is not far from being a Tao Master. Deep Sea, congratulations on having such a good disciple. Unmoved by the praise showered on him, Deep Sea Palace Master responded with a cold snort. My disciple's strength is good, but compared with Xiaomeng he has a long way to go. I think that slap from Xiaomeng has shown part of his own Tao. And in my opinion that should be creation level Tao, but it was not perfect. Chapter 923 Life or Death. Chapter 923 Life or Death. Creation level Tao. The experts present expressed their admiration, but they were not surprised. They had recognized it too. An eternal realm who wanted to be a Tao master had to develop his own Tao. And the Tao that was cultivated had various levels. In the eternal world, the Tao that was cultivated had 3 levels: general level, universe level, and creation level. A higher the Tao level would result in greater strength after breaking through Tao Master. Like Bodhi-Dan, it helped the eternal realm to cultivate his own Tao in a very short time. The basic Tao cultivated was general level. The creation level Tao was more than 10 times stronger than general level Tao. Xiaomeng had cultivated creation level Tao, but it was not perfect. No wonder he is the first genius in the eternal world. He had the courage to develop creation level Tao as an eternal realm. How bold and resolute! If he had cultivated general level or universe level Tao, he would have taken a long time to become a Tao master. What an exceptional genius! Many experts sang his praises. Xia Yu from Xia clan was filled with pride as he heard the others' acclamations. In the drill ground, Li Tianqiu changed into a huge deep sea within which many figures appeared. The figures struck Xiaomeng with killing moves. These included the cold and domineering saber technique, and a huge black mountain striking towards Xiaomeng. Xiaomeng stood in the middle of Black Sea and dealt with the attacks calmly and effortlessly. That's it. Xiaomeng's lips curled and pressed his hand outwards. The force from this move rushed toward the huge Black Sea in front of him and cracked the void before him. This horrible power continued to pass to the Black Sea. The impact set off huge waves in the Black Sea. At the same time, the Black Sea began to shrink at an alarming rate. After a moment, the Black Sea gathered together and the figure of Li Tianqiu appeared. Li Tianqiu's face was pale. A trace of blood hung in the corner of his mouth and his aura was weak. No wonder you are the first eternal realm in the eternal world, Xiaomeng. I thought we would have a close fight, even if I could not defeat you with my ability. It never occurred to me that I can't even make you show your full strength. Now I am utterly convinced that I have lost this fight. Li Tianqiu said with a low voice. You did well. Xiaomeng made a small obeisance. People in the drill ground were all inwardly amazed at the result of the fight and Li Tianqiu's words. Li Tianqiu is very powerful, but he still lost the fight. Xiaomeng didn't even use all his strength. The result should be acceptable to Li Tianqiu. After all, his opponent is Xiaomeng. Xiaomeng is so strong that no one in the eternal realms can defeat him. Chatter broke out among the audience along the perimeter of the drill ground. Li Tianqiu withdrew. Having witnessed Xiaomeng's prowess, the geniuses who had been hesitant about challenging Xiaomeng looked at each other and smiled bitterly. They were now certain that they had no way of challenging him. They would be easily defeated by Xiaomeng, so there was no point in embarrassing themselves by challenging him. Xiaomeng's grin widened and was filled with menace as he glared at Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang. Xiaomeng's resounding voice reverberated through the drill ground. 200 years ago, outside the Circus Island, you killed my brother Xia Yan. Today, at this selection ceremony, would you dare to have a fight with his brother? Life or death? Xia Meng's voice had become extremely cold at the last few words. The drill ground was in uproar. Challenge was from Xia Meng to Jian Wushuang, instead of Jian Wushuang challenging Xia Meng. Haha. It's getting more interesting. Does Jian Wushuang dare accept the challenge? Accept the challenge? He is stupid if he accepts. This is a strength competition. It's not like the first round of wedding gifts competition. Besides, Xia Meng has declared a life or death duel. Even if Xia Meng kills Jian Wushuang in the fight, he will receive no punishment. How cruel Xia Meng is. Voices filled with horror echoed through the drill ground. The audience waited in anticipation. Chapter 924 Jian Wushuang against Xia Meng. Chapter 924. Jian Wushuang against Xia Meng. Jian Wushuang's towering size burned with wrath following his thunderous roar. He joined the fight. He joined the fight. This is a battle of certain doom. How is it possible that he agrees to join the fight? What courage! Is that folly? Or does he indeed wield strength enough to defeat his opponent? Cries and yelling drowned over the incessant chatters rising from the spectators' stand of the arena. Seeing that Jian Wushuang appeared to accept his challenge, Xia Meng smiled maliciously. He flicked his wrist. A blood-red glove appeared out of nowhere, worn over his hand. The glove exuded an aura of intense bloodthirstiness and malice, a clear sign that it was a strong and potent emperor weapon. This appearance of the glove itself roused the fear of everyone present. Many of the spectators present noted that Xia Meng had not used his glove when he defeated Li Tianqiu. It seems that Xia Meng is thirsty for blood. The spectators braced themselves for a gruesome and terrible fight. Some of them even began to fear for Jian Wushuang. Xia Meng was the greatest warrior of the Eternal Realm in the lands of the Eternal World. Even the invincible Li Tianqiu was defeated by him without any apparent effort. It was widely believed that no other warrior of the same realm would be equal to Xia Meng. Xia Meng clenched tightly his gloved fists and instantly, the fabric of space of the air around it began to crack and tear. With a stare filled with hate and malice, Xia Meng looked at Jian Wushuang. I will let you realize, Jian Wushuang, the differences between you and me. Let the fight begin. Jian Wushuang voiced rumbled as he replied coldly, his arms crossed at his front. Xia Meng giggled wickedly and disappeared into thin air even before his laughter ended, appearing behind Jian Wushuang in the blink of an eye. Such a speed! The audience all gasped with amazement. Such a speed indeed. Even Li Tianqiu himself could hardly hide his bewilderment. Xia Meng had not displayed the full extent of his quickness in his battle against Li Tianqiu. What he had now shown was the agility and pace which none of the Eternal Realm could rival. Whoosh! A huge wave of air swept across the arena into the spectators' stands. Xia Meng appeared before Jian Wushuang, his cold and deathly eyes gleaming hungrily. Without allowing his opponent any chance to react, he struck at where Jian Wushuang stood immediately with his gloved fist. The earth-shattering stroke. Xia Meng bellowed loudly. His fist slammed forth with terrifying destructiveness that even the air trembled. The fabric of space crumbled before the tremendous force of his stroke. The aura of his blow passed through the distortion caused to the rupture in the continuum of space, growing rapidly into the size of a huge mountain, a blood-red mountain of death. The huge blood-red mound sped directly at Jian Wushuang, threatening to slam into him with a force sufficient to decimate all lives. The overwhelming power of the aura from Xia Meng's stroke tore through the air, ripping the surrounding space into shreds as it began to crackle and snap. The spectators at the stands all beheld the spectacle fearfully with their breaths held, watching blankly at what was to come. To them of the common masses, this should not even be possible with one of the Eternal Realm. Does Xia Meng intend to kill Jian Wushuang in one stroke? One stroke. It may be possible with so powerful and terrible a stroke. The crowd now began to mutter and whisper anxiously. But Jian Wushuang was still looking calm and collected, clearly unfazed by the tide of death rolling towards him. He could feel the pressure crashing into him face first from the lumbering aura in the form of a blood-red mound rushing towards him. It was a strength almost impossible and yet immensely powerful for one of the eternal realm. But this was hardly anything in the eyes of Jian Wushuang. With everyone staring at him, Jian Wushuang moved. He lowered himself into a horse stance and channeled all the might he could muster into his right fist. This startled everyone who was watching him. He's not drawing his sword. He carries a long sword. He should most likely be a cultivator of swordsmanship. Chapter 925 Double. Chapter 925 Double. Erg. A huge mouthful of blood gushed from Xiao Meng's mouth, escaping like a pouring dam. Like a kite with a broken string, he staggered uncontrollably for a moment and collapsed to the ground. The greatest eternal realm warrior of the eternal world. Jian Wushuang smirked faintly as he slowly withdrew his fist. But his words were hardly a lie. With the power Jian Wushuang now wielded, the title of the greatest warrior of the eternal realm was nothing but a paltry sideshow to him. Even Zidong, whom he had encountered during his second test at the Star Island, was much stronger than Xiao Meng. With the power of the divine realm I wield, I could have pummeled Zidong into heaps of filth during the third test of the Black Tower back then. Now that I have reached the eternal realm level, it is hardly surprising that my power has increased many folds. Jian Wushuang brooded to himself. The cacophonic dissonance of cries and screams in the arena instantly fell into a deadly silence. The tens of thousands of spectators were all dazed, their eyes wide with disbelief and their jaws dropped and speechless. Even the greatest experts who have been watching from the void were awestruck into a bewildered taciturnity. One stroke. Indeed, it was all he took. But it was not Xiao Meng who annihilated Jian Wushuang. Instead, it was Jian Wushuang who had so easily crippled Xiao Meng. Is Xiao Meng lost? A voice broke the eerie silence across the arena. It was a voice which escaped from an unknown mouth. In the next moment, the entire arena erupted into roars and jumped to its feet. Impossible! Am I dreaming? A warrior of the eternal realm defeated Xiao Meng. And he did that with a single stroke. Is he really only at the eternal realm level and not a Dao master? But how was it possible that a warrior of the eternal realm could defeat Xiao Meng with only one blow? This is inconceivable. None could easily believe what they were now seeing. The notion of Xiao Meng being so carelessly defeated was only too unthinkable to everyone around. The uproar was very much greater, even much greater than the moment when Jian Wushuang had produced the magic weapon pavilion. After all, his opponent was none other than the greatest warrior of the eternal realm, the indomitable Xiao Meng. The crowd witnessing the unbelievable spectacle would hardly be so terrified if Jian Wushuang had defeated Xiao Meng in a close fight. But the fact that Xiao Meng was utterly incapacitated with only a single blow had sent the crowd into delirious fervors of insanity. Who else but Dao masters could so easily defeat Xiao Meng, with only one stroke in the vast domain of the eternal world? Step 7. High above atop the platform, the Lord of Circe's Island was the first to rise to his feet. His eyes gleamed brightly as his gaze was transfixed upon Jian Wushuang. Indeed, only a prodigy of immeasurable talent, who had reached the fabled Step 7, could possess the strength of a Dao master despite being only an eternal realm warrior. Jian Wushuang is clearly such a prodigy. The legendary Step 7. It was said that only one had reached Step 7 many long years ago. Who would have expected that we would witness the emergence of another equally talented prodigy? This is unthinkable. An eternal realm warrior who possesses the power of a Dao master? Even the greatest warriors in the domain could hardly refrain from being surprised and amazed as they surveyed Jian Wushuang. The strength and talents that Jian Wushuang had displayed had utterly exceeded their imaginations. Your junior brother is remarkable indeed, Bloodsaber. I wager the temple master would be pleased to have one of such talents if he is here. The elder with flowing white hair said. He was the other master of the Void Temple. That may be so. This junior brother of mine commands greater talents and potential that dwarfs even mine. Xue Lingtian smiled with pride. He immediately turned towards Xiaoyu, who was seated right opposite of him, and sneered. Do you have anything else to say, Xiaoyu? Humph. The battle is far from over. What are you being cheerful about? Xiaoyu retorted coldly. Ah. Shuelingtian's eyebrows twitched suspiciously. Everyone above the stands turned immediately to Xiaoyu, watching him dubiously. It was clear that Jian Wushuang had reached step 7, the level of strength that Xiaomeng could never hope to defeat. But why was Xiaoyu not admitting being defeated when Xiaomeng was already in such dire state? Was he hoping that the master Mubai of the Xia clan would die in battle here and now? In the hands of Jian Wushuang. Ha ha! As if on a cue, the answer revealed itself to the entire arena instantly. Xiaomeng, who was sprawled on the ground, drenched in the blood and viscera of his mangled and gnarled arm, began to scream and laugh maniacally. Jian Wushuang! Jian Wushuang! Xiaomeng howled continuously, like a deranged and wounded beast. His voice rang through the entire arena, filled with hate and malice. Jian Wushuang looked intently at Xiaomeng, his expression grim and sullen. With a face as pale as death, Xiaomeng's eyes flared with rage and contempt. An icy voice reverberated from his throat, echoing in a crisp and clear tone across the arena. I have not expected that you wield such power. Jian Wushuang. Surely you have reached the legendary step 7, unless I am very much mistaken. Ha 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 ha. Great. You are powerful indeed. You are the second to have reached the fabled step 7 in the entire history of the eternal world. Xiaomeng continued yelling deliriously. Jian Wushuang frowned with a foreboding dread, not knowing what else was hidden in his opponent's sleeves. Everyone in the arena could only watch in silence and doubt. Why is Xiaoyu not admitting being defeated? What does he intend to do? Ha ha ha! His insane voice turned sharp and steely suddenly. Do you honestly believe that this is enough to defeat me, Jian Wushuang? Ha 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 ha! How naive! What revolting arrogance! Wait! Just wait till you see this. Xiaomeng continued breaking into another fit of maniacal hysteria. No one could understand what he was trying to say. Even Jian Wushuang himself was puzzled, but he could not shake off a strange feeling of premonition. Just then, poof! A figure shot from the sky, smashing into the grounds with the suddenness, speed, and intensity of a comet falling from the sky, creating a huge crater in the middle of the dueling grounds. Slowly, the dust began to subside, revealing the identity of the figure. But everyone, including the many prominent warriors of the land who were seated upon the stands, instantly jumped with shock. The person was completely the same with Xiaomeng. He was a complete double, bearing the same appearance and poise. There was only one difference between them both. The newcomer wielded an aura many times greater than the Xiaomeng that Jian Wushuang had defeated, a superior aura that was at another complete level. You have done well, Jian Wushuang. Despite being at the Eternal Realm level, you have managed to defeat my doppelganger. The frosty voice came from the Xiaomeng, who had just appeared. With a blink of an eye, the entire arena burst into another frenzy of panic and madness. A double! It was a doppelganger. It was merely a double that Jian Wushuang defeated. But his double could defeat Li Tianqiu with ease. His true power would surely be invincible. The gazes and stares of the spectators in the arena froze instantly upon the true Xiaomeng. All of them shared an uneasy shudder. For it was clear that Xiaomeng's aura was many times greater than that of his doppelganger. An aura which was clearly of the level of Tao Master. Chapter 926, The Battle of the Tao Masters. Chapter 926, The Battle of the Tao Masters. Tao Master! Xiaomeng is now a Tao Master. How long has it been since he started cultivating? Surprised, everyone on the drill ground began discussing Xiaomeng. The top experts in the audience wore very colorful expressions after detecting Xiaomeng's aura. How could he be a Tao Master? I heard that he's only been cultivating for thousands of years, but he's become a Tao Master in such a short time. I think he's the youngest Tao Master in the history of the eternal world. His doppelganger had deceived us all by only revealing part of his Tao earlier. Now that he has become a Taoist, he must have opened up a complete Tao at the creation level. Even if he's new to the rank, he's probably at the top of rank 1 with the Tao at the creation level. The experts looked at Xiao Meng with respect. Xiao Meng had previously shown great potential, but to them, he had been just an insignificant youngster. However, Xiao Meng was now a Dao master who had opened up a Dao at the creation level. This was enough for the experts to regard him as their equal. There were 3 ranks for a Dao master. Xiao Meng had demonstrated the battle strength of someone at the top of rank 1. Elder Xiaoyu, you have a great expert in your clan, the expert said. He has become a Dao master at such a young age with a Dao at the creation level. He'll go on to achieve even greater things in the future. Xiaoyu wore a smug look as the experts in the audience sang praises about Xiao Meng. The old dog. No wonder he's so confident in this battle. It turned out that it was Xiao Meng's doppelganger earlier, while the real thing has long become a Dao master. Shui Lingtian clenched his hands, his face turning gloomy. Xiao Meng stood in the center of the drill ground. He had recalled his doppelganger, and there was powerful aura from his original body. He looked over at Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang was now reassessing Xiao Meng as an opponent. He would have nothing to fear if Xiao Meng was only in the eternal realm, but things were different now that the latter had become a Dao master. After all, there was a huge difference between an eternal realm expert and a Dao master. Be careful, Jian Wushuang. Xiao Meng has opened up a Dao at the creation level, and became a top rank 1 Dao master. Gu Qing's voice rang in Jian Wushuang's mind, warning him. Maybe I shouldn't have looked down on him before. Well, no. This makes things more interesting, Jian Wushuang said, licking his lips as he felt his bloodline power surge. Boom! His bloodline power exploded and his body immediately turned golden. 2 quadrangular stars appeared on his chest. 2-star gold-armored ancient god. However, unlike before, his body did not grow too much. He was only about 2 meters high after making his transformation. It was because Jian Wushuang was able to control the size of his body after turning into the 2-star ancient god. I'd like to see how powerful you are as a Dao master, Jian Wushuang said. Jian Wushuang, the gold-armored ancient god, looked at Xiao Meng with a pair of dark golden eyes. The desire to battle rose from his body. You'll find out soon, Xiao Meng replied. Following these words, Xiao Meng flew high up in the void. Then he brought his palm, covered in a blood-colored glove, down to the spot where Jian Wushuang was standing in with force. The slam turned into a bloody mountain, skyrocketing dozens of times more powerfully than before. Jian Wushuang was no longer where he was by the time the bloody mountain descended. Boom! The bloody mountain crashed onto the ground, causing the entire drill ground to shake violently. Then the center of the ground caved in to form a massive hand-shaped pit. The pit was several miles wide and more than 10 feet deep. Countless gravel was sent flying. Every blade of grass in the area withered. Swoosh! Jian Wushuang appeared next to Xiao Meng in a strange and unpredictable manner. The scarlet sword appeared in his hand at the same time, emitting a horrible killing intent. It was his Blood Mountain sword. His sword had become all that more powerful after he entered the Eternal Realm. Jian Wushuang swiped Xiao Meng with his sword in a casual manner, and a scarlet thunderbolt burst forth from the tip of the sword, carrying a potent destructive aura. The Scarlet Thunderbolt was none other than the divine Yin Thunder that he had cultivated on the Star Island. Hum! The sword light smashed through the void, destroying everything in its path. Xiao Meng sneered and hoisted himself higher up into the void with a slight movement. The sword light swept past his feet. The sword light ended up sweeping the perimeter of the drill ground after missing its target. The countless spectators that stood on the fringe of the drill ground panicked when they saw the sword light charging at them. The general of the royal guards, who was in charge of maintaining order in the assembly, intervened just then. The general, a genuine Dao master, rushed toward the edge of the drill ground as quick as lightning. As he raised his right hand and made a fist, a giant demonic ape phantom appeared behind him. He threw a punch, causing an explosion in the air. Crash! The sword light collided with the fist, sending horrible waves and air currents flying in all directions. What? The general of the royal guards was surprised. He was stunned that his punch had merely blocked the sword light, not entirely shattering it. The horrible air currents formed a huge storm that swept over the spectators on the rear. There were more than 100,000 of them who stood close to the battlefield, and they were all hurt by the storm that carried a small amount of sword essence. It took a moment for the storm to be settled. The scene stunned the crowd. The horrible palm attack had destroyed everything within a few miles of its force. The sword light had formed a storm and knocked down more than 100,000 people. And after the general of the royal guards intercepted it, to boot. What kind of absurd strength was this? It's a battle between Dao masters. A sudden uproar swept everyone on the drill ground. Chapter 927. You're still a joke as a Dao master. Chapter 927. You're still a joke as a Dao master. The experts in the audience did not expect this battle to evolve into such a situation. The original contest between the two groups in the Eternal Realm had now turned into a battle between Dao masters. Emperor Lung, who sat in the heart of the audience, threw a lavender luminous pearl into the air. The pearl cracked and subsequently formed an enormous layer of restriction that enveloped a large area of the drill ground. Only Jian Wushuang and Xiao Meng were enveloped in the restriction area. Now you can fight as hard as you can, Emperor Lung said. Jian Wushuang heaved a sigh of relief. He did not want that to hurt the audience again. With Emperor Lung's layer of restriction, he could use his skills without having to worry about the audience. Jian Wushuang, Xiao Meng called out in his cold voice. Jian Wushuang looked over at him and their eyes met. In the next second they both disappeared. Bang! No one in the audience saw where Jian Wushuang or Xiao Meng had gone. Following the loud roar, they saw a huge sword scar in the center of the drill ground. It was almost 10 meters wide. Before the audience could react, another explosion went off in the void and formed a huge black hole. The residual power was swept around like a tornado. Everything happened too swiftly. Jian Wushuang and Xiao Meng moved so quickly that the audience in the drill ground could not see what was happening. They could only hear the violent explosions in the void and see the cracks on the ground. Only the experts in the audience got a clear look at the battle, and what they saw amazed them. They saw Xiao Meng sending palm strokes flying in the void without an end, creating a formidable force. Sometimes it resembled the eruption of a volcano, and other times, like the surge of the magnificent sea or the descent of a meteorite that threatened to destroy the world. Xiao Meng unleashed his creation-level Dao at its full strength. This was the real battle strength of a top-rank 1 Dao master. However, Xiao Meng's strength surprisingly did not seem to work on Jian Wushuang. In fact, Xiao Meng had no advantage at all. The top experts in the audience could see that Jian Wushuang was executing his swordsmanship at full strength too. Each of his movement was unprecedentedly fast. Moreover, his sword contained the destruction aura of the Scarlet Thunderbolt, which boosted the power and speed of his swordsmanship. Jian Wushuang had such amazing swordsmanship. Besides, he was now a gold-armored ancient god who possessed the Star River secret skill and the level 2 divine Yin Thunder. This placed Jian Wushuang in a better situation than Xiao Meng. Bang! There was another loud thump. Then a giant portal appeared above the battlefield. This was a black hole formed by the collision of their power. Jian Wushuang and Xiao Meng separated again. Xiao Meng roared as he glared at Jian Wushuang. Then, his body was soon enveloped in a layer of bloody mist. The bloody mist gathered and condensed behind him, soon forming 5 giant beasts. These 5 beasts were strange and fierce. Not only were they tall, but their arms were thick and strong as well. Xiao Meng's eyes had also turned scarlet. That's 5-fingered palm. He has such a secret skill. The top experts in the stand were surprised to see the fierce beasts behind Xiao Meng. The 5-finger palm was a creation of a very powerful top Dao master of the Eternal World, on par with Emperor Lung and Emperor Shao, a long time ago. It was a secret skill that was ranked in the top 3 of all palm skills. The power of this secret skill could not be underestimated. When Jian Wushuang saw the 5 fierce beasts, he knew that Xiao Meng was about to perform his unique skill. It was obvious that Xiao Meng was the one who wanted to kill Jian Wushuang in the first place. Since it was he who challenged Jian Wushuang's life first, It would be his own fault even if Jian Wushuang had killed him during the fight. Xiaoyu blushed, momentarily speechless. Xiao Meng, having escaped to the edge of the drill ground, stared at Jian Wushuang in awe. He dared not fight Jian Wushuang anymore. After all, he only had one jade. With his jade broken, nothing could save him from another of Jian Wushuang's killing move. He had lost this battle. Jian Wushuang had defeated him so quickly and thoroughly in front of so many people. His confidence in his strength was completely crushed. Now he felt only fear. Your Highness. Xue Lingtian stood up from the audience to address Emperor Long. This battle is over and it's obvious who the winner is. Your Highness, please announce the name of the Emperor's son-in-law. Everyone turned to Emperor Long with complicated expressions. Jian Wushuang had prevailed in terms of wedding gifts and strength. He was the rightful winner according to the rules of the selection ceremony. He was rightfully Long Rushuang's future husband. This ought to be the result of the contests. However, it was hard to say whether Emperor Long would acknowledge this outcome. After all, everyone knew that the purpose of this selection ceremony was for the marriage alliance with the Xia clan. It was something that Emperor Long had already promised the clan. This ceremony was just a process. The plan was to have Xiao Meng excel in the selection ceremony and become the emperor's son-in-law in the kingdom Tang of the Eastern Land. That way, Long Rushuang would be forced to face the reality. It was beyond anyone's expectations that Jian Wushuang would come into play and even thoroughly defeat Xiao Meng. This outcome was not within the plans of Emperor Long and the Xia clan. The experts in the audience were curious about the choice Emperor Long would make. Would she announce that Jian Wushuang would be the emperor's son-in-law in accordance with the results of the two contests of the selection ceremony? Or would she still choose Xiao Meng without fearing the ridicule of so many people? The choice was up to her. Everybody waited for her to make her decision. Chapter 929 The Result. Chapter 929 The Result. Emperor Long, I hope you make the right choice. Otherwise, Jian Wushuang stared at Emperor Long as he stood on the drill ground. Mother. Long Rushuang was also looking at Emperor Long. I hope you can keep your promise. Your Highness, our agreement is dependent on the marriage alliance between the Xia clan and the kingdom Tang of the Eastern Land. The agreement between us is invalid without it. Xiaoyu also stared at Emperor Long as he secretly conveyed his message to her. Silence fell over the drill ground. Everyone waited for Emperor Long to announce the final result. Who would be the princess husband? Would it be Jian Wushuang or Xiao Meng? All eyes were on Emperor Long, who was frowning as she sat on the throne at the center of the audience. Her expression was grave. To think that Jian Wushuang would be that skillful. Xiao Meng is such a good-for-nothing to be defeated by an Eternal Realm expert. What a headache. She hesitated. Yet she promptly made her decision. Whoosh! Emperor Long stood up and cast the audience a cold look. Only one person will be the emperor's son-in-law of the kingdom Tang of the Eastern Land. That is, Emperor Long pointed to a direction. Xiao Meng of the Xia clan, she said. Her voice echoed all over the drill ground. Everyone, including those on the drill ground and those seated in the audience, heard her. Everyone was surprised at this result. How can it be Xiao Meng? What a joke. Does she think we're all blind? Jian Wushuang defeated Xiao Meng in the two contests of the selection ceremony. Jian Wushuang is the winner, and he should be the princess's husband. How could it be Xiao Meng? Humph, Emperor Long is so shameless. If she has decided that Xiao Meng would be the princess's husband, why bother holding this selection ceremony? She's deceiving herself. Voices that carried anger and indignation came from all directions. There were tens of millions of audiences around the drill ground, and everyone was a clear witness. They knew that Jian Wushuang was the rightful winner of this selection ceremony, and could not believe that Xiao Meng would be the emperor's son-in-law. The audiences could not calm down as they felt such indignance for Jian Wushuang. They could not be convinced. Many experts on the stand sighed with emotion. To think that Emperor Long would dare to do this. She'd even sacrifice her reputation and that of the kingdom Tang of the Eastern Land for this marriage alliance. What's the benefit of her doing this? Is it so important to form the marriage alliance with the Xia clan? The experts were all confused. Some experts even frowned with dissatisfaction. So Emperor Lung has long decided that Xia Meng would be the princess's husband. Had I known this in advance, we wouldn't have gotten involved, Deep Sea Palace Master said angrily. Elder Deadwood also snorted. I heard that Emperor Lung would do anything to achieve her goal. I see that it's true. Both of them came from places beyond the territory of the Kingdom Tang of the Eastern Land and possessed extremely powerful strength. Therefore they dared to speak up without fearing Emperor Lung's subsequent retaliation. Some other experts were also dissatisfied with Emperor Lung's decision but endured it after considering her title and strength. Of course, there was another one who dared to speak out. That person was Xue Lingtian. Emperor Lung, do you know what you're doing now? Xue Lingtian asked with a sullen face. There was anger in his eyes. I surely know what I'm doing now. It's not your concern. The result of the selection ceremony is up to me, and I'm entitled to choose the right person to be my daughter's husband. What does this have to do with you? Emperor Lung's voice was cold. Emperor Lung. Xue Lingtian became even angrier but had to hold his temper. After all, he had to respect Emperor Lung's strength and title. Mother, you've broken your promise, Lung Rushuang said in a faint voice. She stood up from her seat and looked at Emperor Lung. Keep quiet. You're not speaking here. Emperor Lung turned around after reprimanding her daughter and said nothing more. Lung Rushuang's disappointment gradually turned into despair. Lung Rushuang had previously harbored expectations about her mother. However, everything had now shattered. The way she looked at Emperor Lung changed. It became colder and more distant. The drill ground turned tumultuous. Shock and terror seized the crowd. Xia Meng looked at Jian Wushuang in triumph and deliberately sent the latter a secret message while laughing. Jian Wushuang, what's the use of winning the contests? So what if you have better wedding gifts and strength? In the end, I'll be the emperor's son-in-law and Lung Rushuang will finally be my woman. As for you, you're just a countryman from a remote world with a little bit of luck. Yet you wish to compete with me? How ridiculous. Who are you to compete with me? Do you see the outcome now? Haha, aren't you angry and unsatisfied? But what can you do? It's useless. Emperor Lung has long decided that I'll be her son-in-law. You're just a contemptible scoundrel. Just enjoy your moment at the selection ceremony. When it's over, my clan will kill you immediately. That's your ultimate result. Haha. Xia Meng's voice continuously came into Jian Wushuang's ears. There was a hint of arrogance, madness, and triumph in his voice. These were the words from a winner to a loser. They were like silver needles that pierced Jian Wushuang's heart. Jian Wushuang kept his head down. Why? I've presented the best wedding gifts and talent. Why wouldn't she choose me? Jian Wushuang roared in his heart. He clasped his hand so hard that his fingers dug into his flesh and caused it to bleed. He gritted his teeth and trembled. I can't accept this outcome. I definitely can't accept this outcome. I won the selection ceremony, but Emperor Lung chose Xia Meng. Just because Xia Meng is from the Xia clan. Emperor Lung, you're so cruel. Jian Wushuang roared, sending sound waves echoing in the air. He then raised his head as horrible killing intent erupted from his body. Chapter 930 I'd love to. Chapter 930. I'd love to. Rumble. Jian Wushuang's killing intent skyrocketed into the sky. The rumbustious drill ground gradually calmed down. The audience, tens of thousands of them, all turned to Jian Wushuang. They were also full of anger. Nobody could endure this unfairness. They were also curious what Jian Wushuang would do next. Jian Wushuang, do you have any doubts about my decision? Emperor Ling asked coldly. She did not regret the decision that she had made. The whole eternal world might despise her for what she had done after today, but she did not care. She cared only for success. The Kingdom Tang of the Eastern Land would reach new heights once her plan with the National Master succeeded. When that happened, no one in the entire eternal world would dare talk about her behind her back. Doubt. Jian Wushuang scoffed at Emperor Lung's question. Who dares to question your decision, Your Highness? But the protagonist of this selection ceremony, after all, is not Your Highness, but Lung Rushuang. Emperor Lung did not expect such words from Jiang Wushuang. Jian Wushuang ignored her and looked over at Lung Rushuang. Jian Wushuang? Lung Rushuang looked at him with a complicated expression. Lung Rushuang, Jian Wushuang called her name softly. Do you remember the tune you played for me in the nature residence the day we first met in the ancient world? Lung Rushuang did not answer. That tune is called the Icy Heart Melody. Jian Wushuang spoke slowly. The Icy Heart Melody is supposed to be cold, but my heart melted after hearing it. From that time on, there's a place in my heart for you. I never forgot you even after so many years have passed. In fact, I miss you more and more. Lung Rushuang, forget everything else. In the presence of so many people and so many powerful experts in the eternal world, I want to ask you, will you marry me? There were tenderness and expectation in his eyes. He waited for Lung Rushuang's answer. The drill ground was silent as everyone awaited Lung Rushuang's answer. Would she agree? Lung Rushuang opened her mouth. Schwanger, Emperor Lung said in a warning tone as she glanced at her daughter. Unfortunately for her, Lung Rushuang had lost all affection for her the moment she announced Xia Meng as the emperor's son-in-law. She ignored her mother and continued speaking. Lung Rushuang stood on the stand, her beautiful eyes landing on Jian Wushuang. There was only Jian Wushuang in her eyes at that moment. She could not help recalling how she had met him for the first time in the ancient world. That day, when Lung Rushua had caused a strong enemy to attack Jian Wushuang, she offered to help him. She was surprised at his stubbornness when he turned her down. Later, Jian Wushuang made a desperate decision to abandon his doppelganger to survive. She appreciated his decisiveness. Jian Wushuang was not strong back then. He was just nobody in the ancient world. But he impressed her. Since then, Lung Rushuang had always been curious about him. Perhaps it was fate. Jian Wushuang possessed a special cultivation method that could neutralize the icy heart poison in her body. After that, they became involved with each other. She would never forget the time when Jian Wushuang helped her transform the icy heart poison in the ancient world. It looked like an ordinary detoxification process, but it was her first time experiencing something like that. She had never been in contact with a man due to her noble status. That was the first time that a man touched her hand and even poured his spiritual power into her body. For the first time, she was in such close contact with a man. His breath and aura were carved deeply into her mind. She had always dreamed about him. Now he was proposing to her in front of so many people. Lung Rushuang smiled. She was born indifferent and there was almost never a smile on her face. But she was smiling now, unleashing a beauty that drew all eyes to her. Finally, she opened her mouth to speak. Her simple words that carried an unprecedented determination spread around the drill ground. I'd love to. She said the 3 words. Emperor Lung's expression instantly turned cold. Xia Yu and Xia Meng became sullen. Jian Wushuang smiled with relief. He stood there with his hands behind him, exuding a superb temperament. His unique air impressed everyone on the drill ground and in the audience. The experts immediately recognized him. Emperor Shao. It's Emperor Shao. Emperor Shao is one of the 4 emperors. He's here. It's Emperor Shao. The exclamations reverberated in the void. People were still grappling with shock. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. With the swooshing sound of the wind, 10 figures appeared behind Emperor Shao one after another. The men were all dressed in black robes and emanated strong auras. They were obviously supreme experts at the level of Tao masters. Among them was Di Jing, who was very familiar with Jian Wushuang. Are those men the 10 war gods under Emperor Shao? Yes. The 4 emperors in the peak period of the Kingdom Tang of the Eastern Land had a group of loyal Tao masters each. Emperor Shao was ranked second then, and it was well known that he had 10 war gods. Each of these war gods was a true Dao master with incredible strength. Later on, when Emperor Shao broke off relations with Emperor Long, a war between them broke out. Emperor Shao was defeated and his 10 war gods were either wounded or killed. It's evident now that Emperor Shao has once again collected 10 war gods over the years. Now that Emperor Shao has come here in person and even brought his 10 war gods, things are becoming even more interesting. The top experts talked with emotion. The ordinary warriors were excited. They were shocked to hear Emperor Shao call Emperor Lung a lowly bitch. Who would dare call her that? Then they recognized the 10 war gods behind Emperor Shao and became enthusiastic. It was Emperor Shao. Emperor Shao, one of the 4 emperors in the peak period of the Kingdom Tang of the Eastern Land, was as noble as Emperor Long. He was also a little stronger. Emperor Long had defeated him many years ago. But he was now back with his 10 war gods. Chapter 932 Emperor Shao and Emperor Long. Chapter 932. Emperor Shao and Emperor Long. Emperor Shao, Jian Wushuang greeted, looking at Emperor Shao. Well done, young man. Emperor Shao looked at him appreciatively. It's unfortunate that Emperor Long still chose Xiao Meng. Otherwise, Jian Wushuang felt dejected. Emperor Shao also turned sullen. Having observed the selection ceremony, he was well aware of what Emperor Long had done. She'd sacrifice her reputation and even that of the entire country, just for the marriage alliance with the Xia clan. How could she be so disgraceful? How dare you come here, Shao? Emperor Lung cried, casting her cold gaze on Emperor Shao. Humph! Shuang'er is also my daughter. You can't decide on her marriage alone. Emperor Shao replied, you bitch. I've always known you to be a cruel person, but I never thought you'd go so far as not show any concern for our daughter. Since I'm here now, I won't let you make the decision for Shuang'er. Haha, with your strength alone? Emperor Lung retorted sarcastically as she stared at Emperor Shao. You lost our battle and ran out of the Kingdom Tang with your followers. For many years you dared not show your face, yet you dare stop me today? How? With your 10 war gods? Of course not, Emperor Shao answered coldly. I wouldn't have come today if I'm not fully prepared. Just then, more than 10 figures dashed out of the void and arrived at the drill ground. There were 13 of them, each emanating strong, steadfast aura that instantly pegged them as Dao masters. Their leader was a man dressed in purple that gave off a rather feral air. Many people on the stand recognized him at once. Bai Ming Hao. Isn't that Bai Ming Hao of the Bai Ming clan? There are also a few Dao masters of that clan. The rest are also Dao masters in the eternal world. Did Emperor Shao invite all of them here? Bai Ming clan was also a top clan in the Kingdom Tang of the Eastern Land, and was almost as good as the Xia clan. There were also quite a few solitary Dao masters with fairly good strength. Bai Ming clan. Emperor Lung's voice was icy cold. How audacious of you, Bai Ming Hao. Bai Ming Hao sneered but said nothing. It looks like you're here to avenge yourself, Emperor Lung said coldly while looking over at him. But this battle formation of yours isn't good enough to defeat me. Of course, this isn't all that I have to show. Emperor Shao nodded before looking over at where the audience was seated. There, an elderly person with gray hair and a young-looking face stood up. Everyone was stunned to see who it was. Lord of Circus Island. Emperor Lung was taken aback too. She did not care about the Bai Ming clan. They were a top clan with several Dao masters under them, but their Dao masters were only at rank 1 or rank 2. Bai Ming Hao was the best of them, but even he was only at the top level of rank 2. Lord of Circus Island was another story. Being the owner of Circus Island, he was undoubtedly one of the overlords of the eternal world. There were 6 Dao masters under his patronage and each of them was incredibly powerful. Lord of Circus Island himself was a formidable opponent. He had stayed in the level of rank 3 Dao master for many years and his strength was unfathomable. He ought to be evenly matched with Emperor Lung and Emperor Shao themselves. Emperor Lung had to be careful when dealing with a person with such strength. She stared at him and asked coolly, Lord of Circus Island, are you going to intervene? Emperor Lung, both you and Emperor Shao are my friends and you were once a couple. I'm not supposed to intervene in this matter. However, what you've secretly done lately is against the will of heaven, and therefore I must intervene," Lord of Circe's Island said. His words surprised the people on the drill ground. Lord of Circe's Island waved. Lin Huan nodded and went to take a seat next to the alchemy master. Finally, he jumped down from the stand and stood next to Emperor Shao. "Very well, Lord of Circe's Island." Emperor Ling laughed. She then looked around and addressed the crowd in a cold voice. "Who else? Who else is also here to help Shao? Come out." "Me too," said a cold voice as another figure jumped off the stand. This person had long bloody hair and wore a bloody robe. He was Jian Wushuang's senior brother Xue Lingtian. Senior brother. Jian Wushuang looked at him. Xue Lingtian grinned. "Junior brother. I said I'd definitely help you in the event of mishaps. Master Bloodsaber." Emperor Lung's fury was apparent in her cold voice. "You're the master of the Void Temple. Are you really going to intervene in this matter?" "Haha. Emperor Lung, you misunderstood me," said a gentle voice. It belonged to a white-haired elder, who had been sitting next to Xue Lingtian the whole time. He was also one of the 18 masters of the Void Temple. The white-haired elder smiled. "Emperor Lung, Master Bloodsaber will act in his individual capacity today. His actions today have nothing to do with the Void Temple." "In his individual capacity? That's to say, the Void Temple won't be mad at me even if I kill him today?" Emperor Lung retorted coldly. "Correct." The white-haired elder gave a small nod. "Very well." Her voice was as cold as the snow in the coldest winter. "I thought this would be just an ordinary selection ceremony, but I didn't think there'd be so many unforeseen events and so many people to help Emperor Shao. But that's fine too. Since you're all here, that saves me the time to go after you one by one. Today I'll kill you. Whoever's in Emperor Zhao's camp has to die. Heavenly guards." Emperor Lung's scream rang through the entire imperial palace. Figures dressed in golden robes rushed out of the imperial palace and went to her at an extraordinary speed. Even a battle between two Dao masters would spell disastrous consequences for anyone unlucky enough to be nearby. Yet, there were more than 60 experts at the level of Dao masters in the camps of Emperor Shao and Emperor. That was such a big amount. Emperor Shao, Emperor Lung, Lord of Circe's Island, and Xiatao reigned supreme among all these experts. Nobody wanted to get involved in such a war. Even the strong experts, including Deep Sea Palace Master and Elder Deadwood, in the audience had retreated to a distant place. None of them wanted to get involved because there was no promise that they would survive it. The experts from both camps finally collided in the void. Boom! 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 There was a terrible explosion in the sky. The war had just begun, but there were already more than a dozen large black holes in the void. The smaller ones were almost 10 meters in diameter while the bigger ones were more than 30 meters in diameter. Terrible forces were also directed onto the ground. Jian Wushuang and Xiao Meng's battle had previously created many pits, but the entire drill ground was immediately reduced to ruins after a detonation. The drill ground continued to collapse despite having already been reduced to ruins. The spiritual powers of different colors formed spiritual storms one after another, sweeping in all directions. The entire battlefield was completely enveloped in an unprecedented storm. Those weaker than a Dao master would be killed if they touched the storm. Jian Wushuang, who lived in defiance of the natural order, was the only exception. The terrifying storm continued to expand at a frantic pace. The entire battlefield was also expanding wildly. The war broke out on the vast drill ground, but it was not large enough to accommodate the many powerful Dao masters. Before long, the battlefield covered more than half of the imperial palace. Bang! Nearly 100 buildings in one corner of the imperial palace fell apart following a loud explosion. They collapsed into smithereens that were swept away by a gust of wind. Swish! The ground in the center of the imperial palace was ruthlessly cleaved open with a flash of blade light, and a huge knife mark was left there. The mark was over 300 meters deep and made for a terrifying sight. Chapter 934 Instant Extermination in a 1 vs 3 Battle. Chapter 934 Instant Extermination in a 1 vs 3 Battle. It's too terrifying. What inhuman feats? Are they gods? A full-fledged war with more than 60 Dao Masters? How many Dao Masters can there be in the entire eternal world? Innumerable figures retreated far from the imperial palace to watch the unprecedented war unfolding in the center of the palace. Though they were far away, they could still feel the terrible fluctuations coming from the battlefield. There were unprecedented astonishment and awe in their eyes. Dao Master in the eternal world was tantamount to overlords in other worlds. They all possess frightening power that was capable of destroying everything. It was rare enough to find 2 Dao Masters battling in the eternal world, never mind a war with more than 60 of them. This was a war that could frighten heaven and move earth. Meanwhile, over on the battlefield, "Bitch, I'll kill you today," Emperor Shao said coldly, his body filled with unprecedented killing intent. "You're not qualified to do so." Emperor Lung was also filled with killing intent. Bang! 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 There were dozens of impacts between the two in an instant. Suddenly, the impact pushed Emperor Lung backward. "Your strength hasn't improved even after so many years," Emperor Shao sneered. "Damn it!" Emperor Lung was sullen. "If Jian Wushuang hasn't cut off my arm, did you think you'd have an advantage over me?" It was indeed unfortunate for Emperor Lung to have her arm cut off by Jian Wushuang. Her ability to self-repair was amazing, and under ordinary circumstances, her recovery would have been almost instantaneous. However, the sword essence from Sunrise Sword Emperor contained the destruction sword principle. It was so powerful that it halted her recovery process. Thus, Emperor Lung's one arm remained missing. She was disadvantaged with only one arm left, making her an easy target for Emperor Shao. In another battle, "Xia Tao, show me how you're going to keep me here forever." Lord of Circus Island's voice was ethereal as if it came from far away. "Humph! You'll see it right away." Following Xia Tao's snort, a huge axe appeared in his hand. He found himself standing next to Lord of Circus Island after taking a single step. Since the beginning of the selection ceremony, Jian Wushuang's senior brother, Xueling Tian, had picked Xia Yu, the great elder of the Xia clan, as his opponent. Xia Yu's strength was not as good as Xia Tao's, but he had also reached the level of rank 3 Dao Master. His strength was similar to Xueling Tian's. They had been at odds since the fight between Jian Wushuang and Xia Meng. With the outbreak of the war, they immediately targeted each other. Both sides sent out 6 of their best Dao Masters to battle each other. The remaining Dao Masters also found their respective opponents. Jian Wushuang had been eyeing one person since the beginning of the war. It was none other than Xia Meng. Xia Meng had been hurt badly in the contest earlier, but his jade had saved his life. Jian Wushuang didn't believe that he would have another life-saving jade with him. "Go to hell!" The killing intent surged from Jian Wushuang's eyes as he charged at his opponent. "Jian Wushuang!" Xia Meng was terrified when he saw Jian Wushuang rushing toward him. He had mocked Jian Wushuang when Emperor Lung announced him to be Lung Wushuang's husband, but he knew very well that he was much weaker than Jian Wushuang. He knew he was no match for Jian Wushuang in a one-on-one battle. The latter's sword formation would just kill him outright. Therefore he called another 2 Dao Masters next to him, saying, "Xia Qi, Elder Dong, let's kill Jian Wushuang together." Xia Qi and Elder Dong joined Xia Meng without hesitation and rushed toward Jian Wushuang. 3 Dao Masters? Jian Wushuang's expression shifted ever so slightly. "Don't worry. Xia Meng is the only one out of them who have reached the top of rank 1. The other 2 are just at the medium level of rank 1. You'll be able to fight them." Gu Qing's voice resounded inside him. Being in a lower realm, Jian Wushuang could not see the specific strength of these Dao Masters. But Gu Qing could see it. "They're all rank 1 Dao Masters?" Jian Wushuang felt reassured. "Then let's fight." The Blood Mountain sword appeared in Jian Wushuang's hand following a roar. carrying astonishing power. Next to him, the ninth heaven sword formation formed by 36 1-meter swords let out strong power. Jian Wushuang's killing intent surged, and in a flash, he clashed with the 3 Dao masters. Scram! Jian Wushuang bellowed, and the strong power of the Blood Mountain sword skyrocketed. Boosted by the forces of the 24 levels of the secret skills, which was 72 times stronger, he swung his sword. However, before using the sword, Jian Wushuang had also sent out an unearthly energy. That energy was from the mind-controlling secret skill, one of the 3 secret skills of the ancient god clan. The mind-controlling secret skill was used to attack a person's consciousness. After Jian Wushuang reached the eternal realm and his strength skyrocketed, the power of this skill improved too. Furthermore, his consciousness was also much stronger than typical Dao masters. In addition, the divergent bloodstone had also increased the power of this skill. The attack almost hit the 3 Dao masters at the same time. They were all impacted to a certain extent. Thus, when Jian Wushuang's sword arrived, the 3 Dao masters could barely put up a resistance. Bang! 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 The 3 figures were forced backward nearly at the same time, but just as they were retreating, whoosh! Sharp, harsh wind-breaking sounds and fitful explosion noises filled the void. The ninth heaven sword formation transformed into numerous meteors that aimed for Elder Dong at an amazing speed. Elder Dong was subsequently beheaded with his eyes were still wide open, as if he could not believe what had just happened. The 3 of them, 3 Dao masters, had teamed up to fight a solo Jian Wushuang. However, Jian Wushuang ended up killed one of them with just one move. Chapter 935. The seal was broken. Chapter 935. The seal was broken. How is this possible? Xiameng was stunned. How could Jian Wushuang kill one of them when the 3 of them had gone up against him together? Does this younger still have tricks up his sleeve? Xiameng thought in fear. Indeed, Jian Wushuang possessed unusual skills. He was unable to use his mind-controlling secret skill in his battle with Xiameng earlier, but in this battle against 3 Dao masters, he surprisingly unleashed the skill in combination with the ninth heaven sword formation. It was so effective that he instantly killed one of his opponents. This was the first Dao master that Jian Wushuang killed. It was unusual for an Eternal Realm expert to kill a Dao master. However, few noticed this, as 3 Dao masters had died earlier in the battle. Master Mubai, Jian Wushuang is too powerful. We can't beat him, Xiao Qi said. I know. Xiameng was sullen. I've already asked Elder He for help. Elder He. Xiao Qi was pleasantly surprised. Though both sides were evenly matched, Emperor Long's camp outnumbered the other side. Thus, they were able to team up and confront their enemies together. The gloomy and cold Elder He had been fighting together with a heavenly guard against a war god of the other camp not far away. He withdrew from that fight after receiving Xiameng's request and hastily rushed over to the latter. Elder He, Xiameng greeted. Elder He stared fixedly at Jian Wushuang without replying to him. Kid, I know that you're the one who killed Second Master, he said. Back then, he had accompanied Xia Yan to go to Circus Island for a marriage proposal. In the end, the proposal failed and Xia Yan was even killed. When he returned to the Xia clan, he was punished for failing to protect his master. Since then, he held a grudge against Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang recognized Elder He too. Be careful. This person ought to be rank 2 Dao Master. Gu Qing's voice resounded inside him. Rank 2 Dao Master? Jian Wushuang's pupils shrunk. That means he has opened up 2 Dao. There were 3 ranks for a Dao Master. 1 rank meant 1 Dao. A rank 1 Dao Master had opened up 1 Dao. A rank 2 Dao Master had opened up 2 Dao, and so on. But his Dao is just at the normal level, and he's at the lower level among rank 2 Dao Masters. You can try fighting him, Gu Qing said. I understand. Jian Wushuang nodded, and in next moment, dozens of flowing lights burst out of his interspatial ring. The flowing lights merged and formed the ninth heaven sword formation that hovered in front of him. This was the second sword formation of the ninth heaven sword formation. Kill. Jian Wushuang wielded the lavender lightsaber formed out of 72 1-meter swords, and swung it at the void. With a sharp and harsh sound, The lightsaber struck Elder He like a rapidly rotating awl. The crazing rotating awl struck Elder He's head with an incredible power at lightning speed. The attack would have killed an ordinary rank 1 Dao master before he could react. Elder He was different. Humph! Elder He gave his sleeve a flick and gray mist began gushing out. The mist gathered and soon formed a gray cloud. When the awl crashed into the vast and mysterious gray cloud, it was as if it hit a mass of cotton. It went through the cloud effortlessly. What a joke! With another flick of his sleeve, Elder He sent the 9th heaven sword formation flying back at Jian Wushuang, along with the gray cloud. What kind of skill is this? Jian Wushuang was shocked. His Dao might be weak, but it's very strange. Be careful, Gu King said. Do I need you to tell me that? Jian Wushuang retorted. He then threw himself backward at a high speed. However, the gray cloud was even faster and it soon enveloped him completely. He couldn't see anything in the cloud and was beginning to lose his consciousness too. Boom! When he heard a wind-breaking sound next to him, he hastily turned around. However, it was too late for a vigorous palm smashed heavily onto his chest. Pfft! Jian Wushuang coughed up blood as he was thrown out of the cloud at high speed. His face turned deathly pale. Over on the stand, Leng Rushuang witnessed everything happening to him. The war had been going on for quite a while, and more than half of the imperial palace was already in ruins. The experts were also engaged in heated battles, but no matter how mad the situation became, no one tried to attack Leng Rushuang. No one wanted to hurt her and thus kept their distance from her. Therefore, she stood in place as a spectator of the battle since the beginning. Her beautiful face was pale with fright, but the most visible emotion she was expressing was anger. Yes, it was anger. Her anger was ignited when she saw Elder He severely injuring Jian Wushuang. Why? Mother, why? She whispered. Her voice was so low that only she could hear it. The rest were naturally oblivious, as focused on the battle as they were. For all my life, I've never once disobeyed your words or went against your wishes. When Father broke things off with you and subsequently suffered defeat in your hands, I still stayed with you despite knowing it was your fault. So why would you treat me this way? I love Jian Wushuang. I want to marry him. Why would you stop me? Why? Leng Rushuang bellowed, her voice sending tremors through the world. There were unprecedented anger and madness in her eyes. There had been a heavy seal placed on her a long time ago to seal the icy heart poison inside her body. It was also meant to seal something more terrifying and inconceivable inside her. Now, alongside the crazed look in her eyes, the seal was unexpectedly broken. Chapter 936 Primordial Great Sin. Chapter 936 Primordial Great Sin. The fierce battle between the remaining Dao masters of the two camps continued. The battlefield was divided into 3 sections. Emperor Leng against Emperor Shao, Lord of Circes Island against Xia Tao, and Xueling Tian against Xia Yu. Emperor Leng was a little weaker than Emperor Shao, but she was still persevering. Lord of Circes Island was evenly matched with Xia Tao. The only confrontation where one opponent was clearly superior was the one between Xueling Tian and Xia Yu. How could this be? How could Master Bloodsaber be so powerful? Both shocked and horrified, Xia Yu could barely keep fighting on. He appeared to be in a very pathetic state. Xueling Tian's strength was far beyond his expectations. He became a rank 3 expert after opening 3 Dao and his Dao was fairly strong. Even so, Xueling Tian completely crushed him to the point where he could barely put up a fight. Xueling Tian was also a rank 3 expert, but his Dao was even stronger. Moreover, he possessed an extraordinary saber which was much more powerful than Xia Yu's emperor weapon. Fortunately, Xia Yu had a Dao which was especially used for defense. Otherwise, he would be utterly defeated. I've fought him before, but he wasn't this strong then, Xia Yu thought. Just then, buzz! Out of nowhere, an unimaginably cold aura erupted. The aura seemed to have frozen the entire battlefield, even time and space. The Tao masters in the imperial palace halted their movements the moment they detected the aura. That's. They turned to look at the source of the icy cold aura in surprise. They were startled to see who it was. Emperor Xiao and Emperor Long, who had been fighting fiercely in the center of the battlefield, also stopped after detecting the aura. Then they realized it came from their daughter. No! Emperor Xiao's expression changed drastically. Mad. She's gone mad. Emperor Lung cried, appearing terrified. She released the seal? Does she want to die? Only both of them knew just what the seal was for. That was why both of them were so shocked. Lung Rushuang looked up, her beautiful eyes filled with endless killing intent. Swoosh! In a flash, she appeared in front of Jian Wushuang. She faced Elder He with her back against Jian Wushuang. You're the one who hurt him. Her voice was as cold as the 9 serenities. Elder He frowned, not knowing the reason for Lung Rushuang's sudden change. However, her cold aura frightened him. Nevertheless, he nodded without hesitation in response to her question. He wouldn't show fear as a rank 2 Tao master. He was ready to follow up with a verbal answer. But before he could open his mouth, Lung Rushuang was already taking action. She appeared in front of Elder He, moving as swiftly and unpredictably as a ghost. She was so fast that it felt as if she was really a specter. Before Elder He could react, she patted his forehead with her beautiful and fair palm. It was a simple, gentle pat. The moment her palm came into contact with his forehead, a terrible chill took over his entire body. The coldness was the result of Lung Rushuang's icy heart poison. Elder He was stupefied as his body started to turn white, first from the forehead, then to the face, then to the torso, and finally the whole body. In the end, he was turned into an ice sculpture. Then, as a random gale of energy swept the area, the ice sculpture shattered into countless pieces before eventually vanishing in the void. In a split of a second, a rank 2 Tao master had disappeared in a puff of smoke. Those who witnessed this became horrified, including the Tao masters on the battlefield. They had watched a rank 2 Tao master turned into an ice sculpture while alive, and then broken into pieces. What kind of skill was Lung Rushuang using? To this, Jian Wushuang's eyes were full of amazement. He had seen this skill before. He had seen Lung Rushuang kill with the same skill in the ancient world. But they were now in the eternal world, and the Tao masters here were far more powerful. Elder He was a rank 2 Tao master whom Jian Wushuang couldn't win against even after using his full strength, yet Lung Rushuang was able to kill him with a gentle pat. Great sin! Primordial great sinner! Oh my God! King Gu called out in horror, his voice reverberating in Jian Wushuang's mind. Primordial great sinner? What's that? Jian Wushuang immediately asked. There's no time to explain the details, but basically, your little girlfriend's life is a tragedy. She's destined to suffer endless torture, and the reason should be related to her parents, Gu King said solemnly. She's destined to suffer? Jian Wushuang was startled. Lung Rushuang was expressionless after killing Elder He, and merely looked around coldly. Who else wants to hurt him? There was an unfathomable killing intent in her voice. Her cold voice and the surging icy aura around her made every Tao master on the battlefield ill at ease. Xia Meng had already run far away in fear. This is madness! Emperor Lung bellowed, staring straight at her daughter. Shuang'er, are you crazy? How can you break the seal in your body just for Jian Wushuang? Don't you know what you'll face after doing this? There'll be endless pain and torture. It'll be a life worse than death. Is such a life worth it just for the sake of a man? Chapter 937 National Master. Chapter 937 National Master. Is such a life worth it just for the sake of a man? Emperor Lung's cold voice reverberated in the air, her every word ringing loud and clear in Lung Rushuang's head. Is it worth it? Lung Rushuang muttered. Even so, her lips were curved into a smile. She then looked up at Emperor Lung. The only hint of warmth I've ever felt in my life was when he healed me in the ancient world. You ask me if it's worth it? Of course. Her voice was as cold as ice and carried a never-before-seen determination. Her resolution was firmer than ever, as reflected in her eyes. Whatever happened today, and regardless of what would happen in the future, she would never regret it. You idiot! Emperor Lung continued to reprimand her daughter. Emperor Xiao strangely didn't say anything. Jian Wushuang, who stood next to Lung Rushuang, was thoroughly stupefied. Emperor Lung's words were still ringing in his head. Once the seal is released, Lung Rushuang will be endlessly tortured and live a life that is worse than death. Gu King, what the hell is going on? What's going on? The surge of Jian Wushuang's emotions was turbulent and violent. It's a long story, so let's that aside for the time being. Your little girlfriend really loves you, seeing as she'd break her seal for you. If it's possible to do so in the future, you should treat her kindly, said Gu King. Easy for you to say. Jian Wushuang's face darkened. On the battlefield, Emperor Lung looked coolly at her daughter. With a snort, she looked away and her gaze began roaming around. When she saw the situation on the battlefield, she couldn't help furrowing her brows. Emperor Xiao had been well prepared for their battle. Not only did he invite the Baiming clan and a large number of solitary experts, Lord of Circes Island and Master Bloodsaber of Void Temple were also present. From the looks of it, his camp wasn't any weaker than hers. She noticed that Master Bloodsaber was thoroughly crushing Xiaoyu in their battle. Meanwhile, she was also at a disadvantage against Emperor Xiao because she had yet to recover from Jian Wushuang's attack earlier. To make things worse, Lung Rushuang had released her seal and even used such a strange and frightening skill to kill a rank 2 Dao master of the Xia clan. She had thrown the power equilibrium of the two opposing camps off balance. Her camp was at a disadvantage now. If Master Bloodsaber killed Xiaoyu or Lung Rushuang ended up slaughtering everyone, she would be completely defeated. Emperor Lung suddenly looked up as she pondered this. National Master, look at the situation. Aren't you going to make your move? If you don't make your move now, our many years of effort will be in vain. Her cold voice echoed through heaven and earth. The Dao Masters on the battlefield as well as the spectating experts outside the Imperial Palace were stunned. National Master. The mysterious National Master from the Tang Kingdom of the Eastern Land. Hee hee. The laughter seemed to contain a kind of magic power. The experts couldn't stop themselves from looking toward the source of the laughter. They watched as a slender figure appear next to Emperor Lung. This person was dressed in an old gray robe and held a strip of cloth in his hand. On the cloth were the words, fortune-telling. He had gray hair and a wizened face. His eyes were so dark that they were unreadable, and there seemed to be green flames burning behind his pupils. His aura was so plain that he came off looking like an ordinary soothsayer in the market. However, those who recognized him knew that this ordinary-looking old geezer was terribly powerful. Years ago, there had been a civil war in the Tang Kingdom of the Eastern Land. Emperor Xiao had severed all ties with Emperor Lung, and they waged a massive war against each other. Emperor Xiao was superior to Emperor Lung both in terms of prestige and power in the Tang Kingdom, but he still ended up tasting defeat. There was only a reason for his defeat: the soothsayer. This is the mysterious National Master of the Tang Kingdom of the Eastern Land, the creator of Divine Sea and the Blood Eagle Amour? Jian Wushuang thought as he looked at the soothsayer. He had heard of this National Master before. Moreover, he had been quite stunned after learning about the National Master's skills. Divine Sea could crush experts below the level of Dao Masters. On the other hand, the Blood Eagle armor not only possessed strong defensive capabilities, but it could also enhance the user's offensive power. It was unlike anything that Jian Wushuang had ever seen in the Eternal World. He was the creator of both skills. Without his help, Emperor Lung wouldn't have defeated Emperor Xiao. You finally showed up. Emperor Zhao's expression turned grim at the sight of the soothsayer. No one was more well-versed with the National Master's skills than him, which was why he remained in fear of the latter. The National Master was the only one out of the top experts of the Eternal World that he was afraid of. I didn't plan on showing up so early. After all, your friend hasn't shown up yet. The soothsayer smiled. Friend? Emperor Lung frowned. She didn't expect Emperor Xiao to still have reinforcements that had yet to appear. As expected of a person who could frighten junior brother Xiao. "I thought I hid well, but you still found me," said an ethereal voice that came from outside the imperial palace. The voice had clearly come from a faraway place, but its owner had already appeared next to Emperor Xiao. The gray-haired man was dressed in a white robe. Though he appeared to be an old man, the skin of his face was finer than most youngsters. He looked at the soothsayer and Emperor Lung indifferently, as if he was looking into the air. He had an ethereal and incomparably unique temperament. "It's you, Emperor Yun." Emperor Lung's pupils shrunk in fright. Everyone else on the battlefield was also stunned. Emperor Yun. There had been 4 emperors in the golden age of the Tang Kingdom of the Eastern Land, and Emperor Yun was ranked 3rd among them. He had gone missing for years after Emperor Qing's death, but he had now shown himself again. Chapter 938 Stronger? Chapter 938 Stronger. Emperor Yun, even you stand with this Emperor Xiao against me too? Emperor Lung regarded Emperor Yun with anger and surprise flaring in her eyes. "We are all fellow disciples of our teacher, junior sister. As your senior brother, I will usually side no one but just order. But you have crossed the line this time. Not even our teacher will rest at ease at the sight of the atrocities you have committed." Emperor Yun replied coldly. The 4 emperors of Tang Empire of the East were all fellow apprentices of the Tang Emperor. Emperor Yun was the oldest amongst the 4, being the eldest senior brother of his younger siblings in arms and tutelage, followed by Emperor Qing and Emperor Xiao. Emperor Lung was the 4th amongst them, the youngest junior sister. Then again, Emperor Qing wielded the greatest strength and power among the 4, followed by Emperor Xiao by a mere hair's breadth. Emperor Yun and Emperor Lung have always been equal in combat. Our teacher? Humph. For many years, the teacher has yet to show himself. None could say if he still lives. But I would hardly flinch even if he is here before us today. All that I have done is for the good of the Tang Empire. Emperor Lung retorted loudly. Insolent fool. Still until now, you have no remorse of what you have done. With a stare turned cold as steel, Emperor Yun declared solemnly, "As the most senior of our teacher's students, I will exact judgment in his name today and cleanse anew the name of our following." "Judgment? You? We will see who will have the last laugh." Emperor Lung sneered and turned to the soothsayer beside her, saying simply, "I will leave everything to you, National Master." "Ha ha ha." The soothsayer grinned strangely as he stepped forth slowly. Up in the sky, Emperor Xiao and Emperor Yun were floating abreast in the air, watching as the soothsayer stepped forth. Their faces turned hard and intense as the older man approached. "Is this the National Master which you have so much fear for, junior brother Xiao?" Emperor Yun asked in a low voice. "He is." Emperor Xiao replied with a nod before he continued seriously. "I have had the upper hand during my last duel with the bloody woman. It was he who had a hand in my loss. Despite fighting with the blasted woman against me, I am sure that he is very much stronger than I am. Moreover, his methods and techniques are strange and unusual. Despite being well prepared this time, that I have even implored to you for help, I am afraid we have only 3/10 of a chance to defeat him." 3/10 of a chance? Emperor Yun uttered incredulously with shock and dismay. "Let me see how capable this National Master is." With a cold and deathly glare, Emperor Yun leaped into the air before he finished, gliding away with the grace of a floating cloud. Whoosh! A gust of wind blew suddenly in the air, sending FO whoosh, arched a forceful surge of air. "Open!" Proud and stern, Emperor Yun's voice rang out from the air as he remained at the center of the raging winds around him. Without warning, he cast forth a blow from his palm. The blow from his palm ripped through the continuum of space before him, causing a huge black hole to appear. Spanning more than hundreds of feet wide, the black hole grew vehemently at impossible speeds, drawing in all mass and matter upon itself while it engorged hungrily at everything it could draw. The growing mass of darkness hurled itself at the old soothsayer, threatening to devour him whole. "Ha ha ha! Interesting." The soothsayer gave a sinister giggle as he remained standing, waiting patiently for the black hole to bore down upon him. It had grew to more than 1,000 feet wide as its jaws descended on him. Just then, his hand raised and tapped at the center of the mass of darkness gently with a finger. Simple and yet ordinary was his stroke, yet it held a power mysterious and strange. The humongous cavity of pure darkness which had grown into more than 1,000 feet immediately screeched painfully like a howling animal in agony before it collapsed and disintegrated into nothingness. The magic of the black hole had been undone even before it had unleashed its powers. The collapse of the black hole caused a huge vacuum that brought about turbulent and chaotic winds pouring from all directions. This generated a space rift in the skies overlooking the entire imperial city, laying waste to the once illustrious city, leaving many structures and buildings in the city crushed and crumbled. The horrific display of power by the soothsayer left the fighting Dao masters and warriors, including those watching from the outskirts of the imperial city, awestruck. With such ease, he had undone my magic? Emperor Yun gasped in horror as all color had left his face. Suddenly, everything around them turned completely pitch black. The entire world was shrouded by utter darkness that tolerated not even one glimmer of light. A terrifying reign of literal darkness endured as a strong and unmistakable aura of bloodthirsty malice simmered in the air, sending fear and shivers down the spines of everyone around, as if they had stepped through the frightening gates of hell. The stares and glares of everyone around instantly rested upon the origin of the hateful aura, Emperor Shao himself. Emperor Shao scoffed once. Suddenly, his saber swung forth dangerously with the force that he had been channeling. So powerful was the stroke that it could even send tremors across the heavens and earth. The blade shone with a pale, deathly flash as it clove the skies and earth into a half, sending a bright flash across the eerie scrim of darkness that persisted in their surroundings and blinded those who had tried to look. The terrible flash of light tore through the air, the speed of its travel unfathomable and beyond comprehension. Yet, faced with such a terrible stroke, the same assured grin remained upon the gnarly face of the old soothsayer who stood and waited for his adversary's stroke to fall upon him. Whoosh! This shining brilliance from Emperor Zhao's stroke sliced through the figure of the old soothsayer, exiting through his body and continued its way to the huge palace in the city. The flash of light of the aura of Emperor Zhao's blow crashed into the huge and massive palace complex, reducing the countless of sections and adjacent buildings and the palace itself, once the jewel of the imperial city, into nothing but dust and debris. Desolation and devastation was everywhere that even the earth had been flipped over. With only one stroke from his saber, Emperor Shao had brought down the once majestic and imposing palace complex of the Tang Empire, leaving nothing but filth and grime. But the soothsayer, having been hit by the stroke earlier, was hardly injured as his figure reformed. Floating in the air, the old soothsayer continued wearing a sinister grin as he remained unfazed as if the stroke had barely grazed him. How is this possible? Emperor Shao stammered with shock. He had known that the old soothsayer was strong and powerful, but never had he expected such a monstrous difference between their strengths. Instead, the soothsayer had appeared to be even stronger than he was during their previous encounter. Emperor Shao and Emperor Yun, two of the 4 emperors of the Tang Empire of the East. There was an inexplicable and yet distinct twinkle in the soothsayer's eyes as he spoke casually. You have done well to reach such remarkable heights as Dao Masters. You both might have been able to defeat me if you both had joined hands in our previous encounter. But I am afraid things are completely different now. After all, my strength has recovered much after those years. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.